psychology is very much just technical terms of everything, book terms. It really kind of means nothing, though, at the end of the day.
What do you mean?
Like, you get a diagnosis for borderline personality disorder. Psychologists and a psychiatrist will tell you you can't cure it, heal it, nothing. You're stuck that way. So let's figure out ways to cope. And then you'll go to therapy every week to learn how to manage your stressors and your emotions and how to cope with it, mask it, be functional, rather than being taught that borderline personality disorder is a collection of trauma responses and habits that you've developed over time. No one is just born with like a strong sense of like emptiness. No one's just born with like self-hatred and self-emptiness, loneliness, just like a debilitating sense of loneliness. No one's just born with that. And psychology tells you that you are.
That happens to you, you would say. I mean, you can't. Like how could that
becoming
be?
lonely and all that
borderline
garbage?
That stuff comes with the world that you're in.
Yeah.
Mostly.
Yeah, trauma responses. Because like some symptoms, a sense of emptiness and loneliness. You're not born with that. That comes from abandonment. Another symptom, huge fear of abandonment. Obviously, that doesn't just, you're not just born with that. If you were raised in a secure, healthy house with a mom and a dad, you're not going to be afraid of something that's not there.
That's something that's happening to people.
Exactly. Well, yeah.
Yeah. So, and then you, to talk to a therapist because there's no actual cure for it, then they just kind of walk you through how to live with the things that happened to you that made you fucked up.
They don't really even address that it's your past.
It's definitely way more like you're born with it. Like that's their shit.
Genetics. They say it's genetics and you're born this way and the chemicals in your brain are imbalanced.
Right.
That's what they preach. That's true to a certain extent because a traumatized brain is going to look chemically different than a normal brain. But the thing is that the chemicals in your brain change as you process trauma. So you're not born with a chemical dysfunction or whatever. It's some shit happened. You're seriously lacking some fucking dopamine right now. And yeah, then they'll put you on a medication for it rather than going in figuring out where did this come from.
Right, because if they decided to view it in the way that, oh, these are fucked up things that happened to this person in the circumstances that they were raised in, then that leads to
a cure
or a different set of questions.
Yeah.
Which they aren't equipped to answer.
Right. Yeah.
It's like,
exactly.
Yeah, my father was an alcoholic. He was a workaholic, then alcoholic workaholic. He wasn't really around. Mom was stretching her time thin between 6 people, 5 people, and you only get so much out of that. Mm-hmm. You only get 1/4 or 1/5 of your mom and then no father.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this accumulates.
Even just, that is going to result in a feeling of emptiness. I read that adult children of immature parents, some shit like that, I don't remember, emotionally immature parents. So when your parents are emotionally immature or unavailable, like you said, you're going to never feel fulfilled. You're always going to have that sense of like emptiness, loneliness, like broken, because it's your childhood. And so it just doesn't make any sense if you're born that way, then why has no one with borderline, whatever, been raised in a perfect, happy, healthy home, a secure attachment in childhood? No one with borderline personality disorder has a secure attachment in their childhood.
Right.
Yes.
So why wouldn't that be addressed, really? I mean, is it?
So when I took psychology, Psych 1 in high school, we learned about personality disorders. One of the big ones, it's like one of the most rare next to schizophrenia, it's DID, which is dissociative identity disorder, which is where you split personalities. And they teach you, and it's foundation knowledge, that disorder comes from trauma. That one they have recognized. You have to have had something happen to you.
Very traumatic.
Yes. And that's what makes you split, because that shit doesn't just happen. And so I don't understand why they don't put that same logic with narcissists, borderlines, bipolar, like anything. They just label personality disorders as incurable. And I've actually even been advised to not work with people who have personality disorders. But I'm like, that's me.
You have one.
Yeah.
Or
That's
for whatever.
or however many. Yeah, who fucking knows?
Whatever they say.
Yeah, and I know where all my shit came from. It's like I was not just born with irregulated mood patterns and these heightened sense of whatever and all these sensitivities I have to things. Like, you know, to a certain extent, you do have genetics play a role. But when it comes to like, oh yeah, I have a huge fear of abandonment and I was just born that way.
What?
Exactly. And so that's how I feel. That's how I see psychology.
Dissociative personality disorder. It's fucking insane to me that the logic for that isn't used anywhere else.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this person's splitting because of this horrific shit that happened to them as children. But that's the only one.
Yeah.
The rest of them, you're just fucked. You're just born fucked, or you're not born.
Yeah, the only cure to DID is trauma work. They say like hypnosis or, you know, but ultimately it's fixing the trauma that happened that made you split.
Imagine that.
Yeah. And so I'm like,
well, how about that with
okay,
everything?
so how about borderline? How about instead of putting me on antipsychotics, like how about figure out where my fear of abandonment came from? Like the fuck? Putting me on a medication for, and you know, that's not the only symptom, but putting me on a medication for
being abandoned as a child.
Fear of abandonment instead of having me deal with being abandoned as a child.
Right. Like
seems
getting
weird.
to the root of it.
Yeah.
And being like, okay, so this happened to you. Like, what do we do about it?
Yeah.
How did it make you feel? And
instead it's, oh, you can't be fixed, but we can get you a job and shit, make you functional enough to sustain a job and whatnot, so that you can, you know, give something back to us, because fuck you need to pay your taxes.
You need to pay for these pills and shit and these appointments.
Exactly. How are you going to pay for these appointments, these $100 sessions?
If you're not functional enough to get the money, you got to be functional enough to get the money to give to us.
Yeah.
So we can... God, that shit has always been the coldest shit.
Shit makes no sense.
That's always been the shit that fucks me up the most about therapy.
And psychiatry, even more of a fucking joke.
How?
10 years of med school to sit there and talk with me for 20 minutes for me to tell you I want this medication. Okay. The fuck?
10 years?
They have to go to med school.
And how many large textbooks did they and labels did they have to memorize? And then you just show up there like, hey,
nothing.
I'm going through a breakup. I'm pretty sad.
They don't memorize anything. I'm going to tell you right now. She has a book on her thing so that when I tell her what I'm experiencing, she can look up a medication for me. She doesn't even know it. She has them right there.
So it's not the DSM that she's referring to. She probably has the DSM
I was
memorized.
both. Well,
that's both.
Yeah, I was gonna say both. She's probably got more of the DSM. Yeah,
right.
But as far as the medications, nothing.
She goes through this huge book.
Yeah,
and it's like, okay,
she just looked through the book. She's like, oh, we could try this, and then that one doesn't work. Okay, so we tried this. How about we try this?
Just going down a list.
Yeah.
Ooh.
That's my point.
Ooh. That's not good.
That's why I think it's a joke.
I mean, that's reasonable conclusion.
Yeah. That's why I feel that way, because I've been in too many appointments with crazy women. Like, there's men psychiatrists. I had one, but he wasn't crazy. He was actually pretty helpful for me. But these women are just like crazy. They're not helpful. I go and I'm like, hey, I need Adderall. And they're like, how much? That's it.
You tell them the dosage.
Yeah. Yeah.
You tell them the drug and the dosage.
It's ridiculous. They don't know anything about me. They don't know anything about my life, anything about my brain chemistry. Their knowledge and school has been no use.
And just left and right.
Completely useless.
Yeah. Oh, you're this, so you eat these.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, so you're this disease, so you eat these drugs.
Yeah, literally. That's the job. And then they write their name on the paper so that I can legally get it. And that's what they're paid for. What a job.
It can't be. Like, that can't be what it is.
It is, though. It is. I talked to my mom about it today. I was like, don't even get me started on psychiatry. And she's like, yeah, I know. I'm like, I just go in and get whatever the fuck I want. She's like, yeah, I know. like there's just, it's a joke. That's why I feel the way that I do.